Hi, this is Sean O'Toole with Foreclosure Radar's California Foreclosure Report for January 2010. In this month's report, we saw notices of default drop to 25,737, down 5.4% month over month from December and 36.5% from the prior year. But that's not the full story. There were fewer recording days in January than in December. So actually on a daily average basis, foreclosure filings are up 9.5%. Not a huge change. We're kind of trading within a range, but still up, not down. Notices of trustee sale, the second stage in the foreclosure process, also down 4.7% to 27,125. But again, on a daily average basis, they're up 10.3%. So despite the headlines, foreclosures are not down. They're up on a daily basis, but only a little. Now, when it comes to foreclosure outcomes, this is the end of the final stage of the foreclosure process. We saw more properties sold, back to the bank, to third parties, and canceled, ending the foreclosure process for folks. Back to the bank up 11.7%. But again, on a daily adjusted basis, up 29.4%. Properties sold to third parties, way back up, but this was after a big decline in December. They've jumped back basically to November levels. Same thing with the ones back to the bank. We're back at November levels after a brief respite in December. Third parties up 40.5%. On a daily average basis, up 62.7%. Now looking at the cancellations, they only rose a little bit, 4.3%, daily average basis 20%. This is surprising because I previously predicted we wouldn't see a wave of foreclosures, we'd see a wave of cancellations. The administration put a lot of time and energy into a conversion campaign on their home affordable modification program. Those conversions aren't happening, we're not seeing the cancellation. It appears HAMP is dead. Bigger story here too is that despite foreclosures being up, we actually are seeing a smaller percentage of those scheduled for sale have a final outcome. More people are sitting in foreclosure. So 21% of those properties scheduled for sale in January foreclosed versus 31% being either foreclosed or canceled a year ago. So again, a lot more stuff in the pipeline. Even though the numbers are up, overall, we're seeing fewer foreclosures, more postponements. Now with notices down and outcomes up a little bit, we'd expect to see some change in the foreclosure inventories. Pre-foreclosure inventories down slightly. Notices of default have really been coming down faster than notices of trustee sale. Scheduled for sale, down slightly, 1.1%, not as much as the pre-foreclosures because notices of trustee sale have been staying fairly flat. They haven't been declining at the same rate as notices of default. And bank-owned properties up just a little, but again, generally trending downward as banks typically can resell REO properties very quickly in the current market where there's little inventory. The total numbers, though, of folks in foreclosure between pre-foreclosure and those scheduled for sale remain near record levels at around 300,000 properties currently in the foreclosure process. Now, we've added a new metric to our foreclosure report this month, and this is foreclosure timeframes. Let's first look at the time to foreclose. This is the time from the original notice of default being filed until the property is sold at auction. Now, that's up from 18 months ago, from 146 days on average in August of 2008 to 229 days in January of 2010. Again, this explains a lot of these postponements. This increase in number of properties scheduled for foreclosure but not being foreclosed on is just taking longer to get through the process, and we now highlight that in our report. The time to foreclose was up 3.3%. Last month and 19.6% year over year, and it's been kind of creeping up steadily since this has started. Now, the other thing that we looked at is once properties foreclosed, how long does it take to be resold? Both how long does it take the banks to resell the properties and how long does it take the auction investors to resell properties? The banks, on average, have been about 224 days on those properties that resold in January. Auction investors, just 149 days. Auction investors are clearly motivated and outperforming their bank counterparts. Now let's take a look at the foreclosure discounts at auction. Compared to market value, those properties that sold and went back to the bank at auction on average had an opening bid 22.8% higher than market value. Clearly the reason investors weren't interested. And those that were bought by investors on the auction steps on average were 17.8% below market value for the winning bid. Now, these discounts have narrowed a little bit over the last few months. We think it's for two reasons. One, the banks aren't as aggressively discounting their opening bids as they have in the past. And two, there's a lot more competition down in the courthouse steps. Activity from third-party investors has really picked up over the last 6 months. A lot more competition down there. It's driving the prices higher. This is Sean O'Toole with January 2010 Foreclosure Report. Thank you very much for watching.